Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make this cute mini bag. It's one of the bags in the Alexia bundle pattern, and it has a flap with a magnetic snap, and this is the inside of the bag. And then it has a connector here to attach your chain and a bead or pairs handle. I'm going to be showing you how to make all of this in this video, so let's get right into it. First, to work on the main panel, I'm going to transfer the dotted line on pattern piece B to my interfacing panel. So after marking on the sides, by matching the pattern now to the panel, I'm going to use my ruler to join those marks together to form a straight line. Then I'm going to label everything. So the topmost one is the flap, then the top of the bag, then the back of the bag, then the base, and then the front. Now I'm going to fold it on those lines that I've drawn before to form the shape of the bag. So this is the shape of the bag now. And then going to my main panel, I'm going to draw a 3/4 of an inch on all the edges. So I'm drawing a line 3/4 of an inch from all the edges. Okay, so the fabric I'm using does not exactly allow the marks to show, but there are marks. I mean, there are 3/4 inch mark on the fabric, just that is not very visible in the video. So I'm going to set the interfacing now at the center, I mean within the marks that I've already drawn. I'm just going to be using my glue, but you can go ahead and fix it to your fabric. So note that this fabric is actually a frame fabric, which is usually not like me. I am used to vinyls and other non-frame, but this time I'm using frame fabric just to show you that you can use a frame fabric for this bag as well. Just follow the pattern and do not use frame fabric for things like the inner flap, the lining, and all of those. But for places where I do not mention to not use a frame fabric, you can use a frame fabric, just like I'm doing in this video. Just that if you're using a frame fabric, note what I'm doing to the edges that are supposed to poke up, that I should cut later. I'm not going to cut those, since the most frame fabric are usually not very thick, so I don't exactly need to cut it. I'll just leave it like that, and it's not like it's going to be really thick because the fabric I'm using is light, it's not thick at all. So I'm folding to the edge of the interfacing. Please do not fold over the interfacing, as this will make your seam very bulky. So I'm folding only to the edge of the interfacing. So once this is done, we have our main our exterior. We're going to be calling this exterior moving forward. So then I'm going to take my piece B and then make the mark for the purse fit and use it to install my purse fit. So after installing the purse fit now, I'll move to I'm going to take the pattern piece B again and then use it to mark where my female magnetic snap should be installed. Then I'm going to install the female part of my magnetic snap. The bow panel now. So draw a 1/2 inch line on the long edges of the bow panels, all the three, except for the bow panel 2, which is actually square. That's no longer edge, so you can choose any of the two edges. Just make sure that the edges are alternating each other. That is, if you are drawing on one, you will not draw, you will draw on the opposite one, right? So after this, we're going to use a double-sided tape to fold that edge to meet the line, the edges that we have drawn the 1/2 inch line on. Then fold the edge to meet that line. Then I've already done it for the rest of the panels. Then you're going to fold them right sides together, matching the folded edge. Then I'll clip in place and then sew, and then we're going to sew the raw edges with 1/4 inch seam allowance. So now I've sewn them with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then I'm going to trim off the corners to reduce the bulk after turning it to the right side. So now I'll turn the panels to the right side. and then I will use clip to hold the folded edges together. Now it's now wrong sides together. So everything is sewn on the folded edge now, and then I'm going to hold those two square bows together, the smaller one on the top while the bigger one at the back. Then I'll center it and then sew at this very middle, at the center of it, as I'm doing now. Then I'm going to make two pleats. So make the pleat as I am showing in this video, folding the center and then folding the sides as I am doing. Then use your super glue to hold everything nice and good. So this is what the second bow also look like. Also fold the center first, use super glue to hold, then fold the remaining sides as well. So this is what the bigger bow looks like, and then I'm going to bring them together, and I am also going to use super glue to glue the smaller one to the bigger one, as I am doing right now. So this is the back and this is the front of the bow. So I'm going to do the bow binder now. Draw a straight line down the long edge of the bow binder, and then I'm going to use glue to hold all the long edges to meet that center line. Then I will use the bow binder to bind the bow, of course. Now from the right side of the bow, make sure that the longer tail of the bow binder is on the back of the bow itself. So I'm going to use pattern piece B to mark where the slits of the bow binder will be. Then I'm going to cut a slit. And then I'm going to install the long tails of the bow binder now through those slits. So this is what we should have after installing it. And then on the wrong side of the main panel now, I'm going to stick the long tails of the bow binder down using super glue. And of course, we can now cut the excess bow binder. So to the next step, our undo panel. So we're going to take 1 millimeter wire and remove the insulator covering on the wire, because all we really need is the wire itself. So please be careful when you're removing this. Be careful with your blade or cutter that you're using to remove the insulator. So right now I'm going to install the pairs onto the wire. So you can use any pairs of your choice, because the pairs that I use inside the pattern are even different from the ones I'm using inside the video. So you can use any one of your choice. So now the mark for to install the wire is on pattern piece B, and it's the dotted one at the center that we're using, because the wire is very tiny and we do not want to create too much hole. So I'm going to use my needle. This is my machine needle, I think size 22 or size 23. That is what I'm using to punch the hole for the wire. I don't want big hole. I want it to be very, very, very tiny, because it's a tiny wire, as you can see. So it's in now. Then I'm going to make sure that the wire is really, really tight. It has to be very tight. Now at this point, what I use to hold everything together is contact adhesive. So I'm just going to apply it on the top of the bag, right at the top. And then I will also attach contact adhesive on a small piece of leather. And then it's all dried, because when you're working with contact adhesive, it has to be dry before you stick everything together. And I'm sticking everything together to hold that wire in place. Now it is really, really sturdy and stable. So moving on to our lining panel. Take the top edge of the lining as stated on pattern piece D, and then match it to the straight edge of the flap lining. Then clip everything together and then sew with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. I'm going to open the panels now, and then top stitch towards the lining panel with a 1/8 inch seam allowance. I'm going to take the lining right side down, and then put the exterior right side up, centered on the lining. Then I'm going to trace out I'm tracing out the exterior on the wrong side of the lining now. So this tracing out is very, very important to installing our magnetic snap. So after tracing it out like this, I'm going to mark 0.75 inch from that line on the top of the flap, from the line that I just traced out and then centered. This is where I will install the male end of my magnetic snap. So after installing the male end of my magnetic snap, I'm going to glue my main panel, or should I say the exterior now, to the lining using my glue. So when you are holding them together, make sure that the exterior goes within the line that you just drew. It is very important for the magnetic snap to close very well. So now that everything is nice and good, you can also try to close your magnetic snap to be sure that everything is okay at this point. If it's not, you can still open it and readjust everything, because the next step we are going to sew it all together. So we are going to sew the top and flap area, removing the bow out of the way so that you don't sew through it. And we are sewing with a 1/8 inch seam allowance. So we stop right once we get to the top, the end of the top of the bag. Then we are also going to sew the top of the front, of the bag, which is where I'm sewing right now. And I'm not going to sew the sides because I've used contact adhesive. But if you do not use contact adhesive, please sew the sides with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So it's not going to be 1/8, it's going to be 1/4, so that you can cut the lining way smaller than the exterior, so that at the final seam the lining will not be showing from the side. So right now I'm just trimming off all the excess lining. And be careful you don't cut into your seam. So you can see that the exterior is actually bigger than the lining. You can see it obviously from the side. So this is what it looks like at this point. Now we move to the side panel. Set your side interfacing on the side lining, and then mark out the edges of the side interfacing. Now I'm going to use glue to fuse everything together, but you can decide to, if your interfacing is fusible, you can decide to fuse yours together. And of course on the wrong side of the side panel. Now I'm going to install my chain holder using the mark indicated on the pattern piece H. I'll use rivert press to press the rivet in place. Now fold the bottom corners of the side panel right sides together and then clip it in place. Then take it to the sewing machine and sew with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Now we are going to cut the we're going to cut that corner, the fold of the corner now, and then we will fold it down and glue it in place. And then we'll repeat it for the second side panel and the remaining 2 side lining panels. Now we're going to fold the sides and the bottom of the side panel to meet the edge of the interfacing. Again, we are not folding on the interfacing to reduce the bulk in the final seam. And then I'll repeat the same thing for the second side panel, but not for the side lining. Now we're going to take one side panel and one side lining, right sides together, and clip the top. Then I'm going to sew with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Then we'll fold it wrong sides together and top stitch with a 1/8 inch seam allowance. Now at this point, I'm going to use glue to glue both the lining and the side panel together, wrong sides together now. Now, if you do not have glue, you can put them together as I'm doing now, and then sew the sides and the bottom with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So then you will trim it down to 1/8 inch if you have sewn it. But if you haven't sewn it, you trim it down in such a way that the lining will be shorter than the exterior. So you can see the lining is smaller than the exterior because we don't want the lining to be showing in the final seam. And I'm just using super glue to glue the seam that I've opened, because cutting that seam will make it open, of course. So now we have the side panel, and then I'm going to go into the last step now. We are going to hold the side panel wrong sides together with the main panel as I am doing now. So we're going to hold the top edges first, then hold the bottom center, then the sides in between, so that everything is nice and smooth. And of course, like I said, I like to use glue, super glue, a lot, so that everything is nice and smooth and stays in place till I am going to the sewing machine to sew. So I'm not using too much super glue, just a little to hold everything until I am ready to sew them together. So now, taking it to the sewing machine, I'm going to sew the side panel with a 1/8 inch seam allowance all around. And at the point of sewing this, no lining will be showing at the side panels, because we have already made sure to cut the lining in and smaller than the main panels. So then the bag is done. At this point, everything is nice looking. So that's the inside of the bag, and it closes like that. Then I'm going to go ahead and install my chain on the chain holders. So it's done now. This is it. This is what it looks like. And guys, thank you for watching. Bye.